Welcome to Anecdotes for Success with Matt and Paul. Storytelling is an art form, emphasizing the value and learning that is created through personal experience. Our purpose is to share these stories and experiences with the listener. Everyone has a powerful testimony. Let's use them to level up to our best life with truth, meaning, trade-offs, and perspective.
So we just spent about 20 minutes where we should have been recording, so I had to stop. But I actually laid the foundation for the topic. How you doing, by the way?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Well, good. I'm just, stacking canned goods and necessities for after next Tuesday.
Right. The election of a lifetime, right? Or
Oh
of
my
a,
gosh.
I don't know, whatever they're saying.
Real quick, it's been interesting talking about it in school. I do political philosophies with all the New Visions kids. And when I make them say both candidates' names, I can see by their body language who they vote for. Isn't that crazy?
Really?
Or
Oh,
well, they
really?
don't vote. They don't vote
Right, who
yet.
they would, right, who they
They're
support.
all turning 18. And then we just do political philosophies, and it's about freedom if you're a libertarian, it's about control if you're authoritarian. And then the Democratic Party likes freedom for society, but not economics. And the Republicans like freedom for economics and not society. And they love it because they can solve any issue. And then they realize neither party technically has the answer. Isn't that the crazy thing?
Not from where I'm sitting. Makes
Yeah,
perfect sense.
and I said if you are into freedom and choice and happiness, you'll learn to adjust whoever's in power. You have to. But again, over decades, one party's policies can shape and turn the country in ways that the other party couldn't, and vice versa. But any one election, and maybe this is a tipping point, but sorry, we got off on that tangent. Let me get back to the topic. So obviously, I have my financial business. There's no overhead. It's dormant. Besides working with current clients, it's dormant cost-wise, except my yearly licensing and if I have a client. You've preached to my kids and me about assets and liabilities for years. Now I'm 2.5 months into my business, and I remember something we were just talking about where you said, be careful or you're going to drown in cost after cost after cost. And I was just complaining to you about some of my costs, how the outsider comes in and sees how crowded we are, and they're like, man, you're killing it. I'm like, well, kind of, but I haven't dialed in my costs yet. And some of that's out of precaution. That's why every day you used to tell me every morning you're looking at your spreadsheets and your numbers. I spend 30 minutes every morning before the kids come to school. And I'm looking at my numbers and my spreadsheet and my document, wondering how I can make it better and cut. So I'm preaching to the choir here, but what are your thoughts on, you take action, you start the business, where's the funding come from? Failure's not an option. We went over all that. So now you're doing it. You're living your dream, but you feel like you're being drowned in your costs. So how's that happen and what can you do about it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it happens mostly in a new business because you don't know what you don't know going in, right? There's just certain things you just don't know. I mean, you're experiencing it. I've experienced it. I've got a new venture going. You and I are kicking around a new venture.
Yeah.
Same thing will happen, right? So the only thing you can do is do what you're doing, which is unapologetically dive into the things you'd love to bury your head in the sand on, right? It's like, I tell a story years, and I did this in my personal life years ago when I was trying to change my financial life. And it wasn't that I was in some dire position, but I knew it could be better. And the one thing that I knew that I was doing, Paul, was I was burying my head in the sand. I didn't want to dive into those monthly costs. I wanted to ignore that $5 coffee, or that back then it would have been a $2 coffee. It's going back a bit, or that extra night out to eat, or the things that I could control, but I didn't want to have to look in the mirror and say, well, I can control these things. I've talked ad nauseum about some of the decisions I made in order to do that, but it's doing what you're doing, is diving in and looking at it and what do I need, what don't I need, and tackling those things really head on. And look, everyone's trying to take your money. You know what I mean? Everyone's got trying to offer you something to get. I mean, that's what we do in society. Let me see if I can. I'm offering things to customers, potential customers, things that I think are valuable, or I wouldn't offer them. But it's the path of least resistance is just to spend. Especially when you look and you go, oh, look at my revenue. We're doing great, and it's $100 here and $800 there, and before you know it, I look at my donations every year, Paul, for example, just on my P&Ls, and I go, and I love to do things like that and I participate, but I look and I go, oh my gosh, how the heck did I had no idea? Those things you just lose track of those things. So if you're not on it every day, particularly at the beginning, but Paul, I'm 10 years into this, and when I was waiting for us to get started, I was on my spreadsheets, and that's something I look at. There's not a day that goes by that I don't look at every store I have my spreadsheets.
It's amazing. You talk about donations. It's funny, you open a business. I can't tell you how many people have come to us. And Stacy and I made the conscious, we're just not donating right now because I don't even
You got to get your
I don't
arms
even
around
have
this.
anything honed in. And
Right.
I want to. I wasn't donating last year as a business when we didn't exist.
Right.
So the fact we have a freeze on it doesn't mean we're not gonna. And we've had a
Course.
lot of good talks with people. We don't just say no
Yeah.
and want to, but I can't afford. I think the costs I'm talking about when your revenue's good, I'm a smart person, but you forget about sales tax and you forget
Yeah.
about income tax and you forget about tax bills. And they don't care how long you've been open. They just pop those amounts on you like, hey, here you go. Well, you didn't tell me that was going to happen. Doesn't matter. They're due.
Here
And
it comes. Yeah. Pay
then
me
you
or
have
else.
you have heating surprises or I was joking with you last week about I didn't realize I had to pay somebody how much it would be to pay somebody to plow my parking lot in the winter.
Yeah. Right. Right. We were talking about that.
And
Yep.
those are now next year I'll
Exactly what I was
allocate
going to
for
say.
all that.
So you
But
need
I
that
I
year.
can't right now.
You
I
need
don't
that
know.
year. You need that year to then go, okay, this is what I dealt with. And then you can dissect that even, and you're gonna, and you need to, and go, all right, where was my waste? What should my labor be? What should my cost of goods be? Do I need to raise prices? Do I need to
Right.
eliminate certain products that are just waste? Do I need 2 people, 3 people working at this time, or can I get away with one, less than that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And again, when the place is full and everyone's buying and everyone goes, oh, it's no big deal. You just have one extra person on. Do that over a year and look at, that cost and what that's going to do to you and your business. And people don't understand. They don't have a clue. They see one thing, revenue, or what they perceive to be revenue based on the number of people there. They don't understand that yeah, it's packed at 6 o'clock on Friday. How did it look at 4 o'clock on Wednesday, right? You still had to pay your bills, you still had to pay rent, you still had to pay taxes, you still had to pay labor, you still had all these other things going on, and you weren't making money. You were losing technically money during those times. You still have to be open, you still have to do that
Right.
kind of thing. But the average person doesn't have a clue. And the fact of the matter is your business is like your personal life. Like I can't donate and give unless I can put food on the table for my family first, right? Unless I
Right.
can pay my mortgage, unless I can pay my taxes, unless I can pay my utility bills. So let's get all that dialed in and settled before we start participating in other community events. Unless you're independently wealthy and it doesn't matter, and your business can lose thousands a year, and it doesn't matter. You and those people are out there, but I don't think you're one of those, and neither am I. This is how I live my life, and but you have to dive into those details in a crazy way. Again, 10 years into this, Paul. My I think I told you my accountant told me recently. He goes, "Oh my God, I miss those spreadsheets. Those things were a genius." And I go, "I still use them." And I look at them every single day. I find Paul, I find how often my garbage gets picked up at every one of my locations a month, and can I cut it by a time? I've saved tens, if not tens of thousands of dollars, let's just say, over the years on things like that. And you need to as well. Everyone should.
Well, I'm excited. It's the advice, I asked you how you track your costs and you gave me your spreadsheet. You're one of the most transparent people I know. And I looked at it and it made perfect sense. And it is a work of art, not to flatter you too much. But for my business, there were too many categories I didn't want or need.
Yep.
But it gave me foundation to build my own. And 2 months in, I've already changed mine like 4 times. And then I talked about a debated change. But it's so much fun. It's one thing to walk by a building or see a building that's yours and you create a couple jobs, not to change the
Yep.
world, but just to go through the guts of it. And it's like working out or eating good foods and seeing what changes it'll do for the
Mm.
health of a body. Same with the business. It's a lot of fun. It's the most fun part of the day staring at those spreadsheets, if that makes sense.
It is, Paul, because that's where your business is certainly currently, and I would say moving forward, that's where the business is done. Not the operations, not the marketing, not some of those other things, but none of those other things will matter if those numbers aren't in line. And what most people do, Paul, is they get a P&L every quarter. And then they do is they start at the top and they go whoop, right to the bottom. And they go, how much money did I make? Oh, okay. And then they wait for the next quarter. And it's like turning a giant ship, right? Versus turning a small ship. If you're looking at it every day, you can make quick moves, you can make important moves, you can change how that P&L is going to look at the end of every quarter. If you're just looking at it every quarter, it's turning a big ship. You didn't know anything. And then most people don't even know how to read a P&L. Paul. They can look at some things, but they don't know how to technically read it, or a balance sheet or a cash flow model, and really understand it in a way. When you're looking at your numbers the way you are day in and day out, believe me, you're going to look at a P&L and you're going to know right where everything is and what it means, what you can do about it, and what you can't.
Well, it's funny. I say it's exciting. Stacy and I are more treading water and just tracking everything right now
Yeah,
than
sure.
analyzing and making it better, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But we have that food truck. By the way, quick plug, if anybody's ever interested in maybe operating a food truck next spring, let Matt and I know. But the people that have operated the food truck, like, they do great, but they have no concept of what it's costing them to do what they do. I'm not trying to be mean, but it's the most important part of the business, your costs.
Yes, it is. It is. It's such a huge impact on the business, and most people, they don't want to deal with it. They just, hey, let me sell as much as possible and we'll see how this thing shakes out in the end. And it's completely irresponsible. The most responsible thing you can do is get in and understand. And we could be talking about your personal life too, Paul. I
Right.
used to run reports every month on my costs from my credit card, and I had things like eating out,
Wow.
utilities, my checkbook and my credit card, and anything that came out. Literally, I had a spreadsheet for all that. But I treat it the same way, and I'd go, this was, and I was trying to build business, trying to make money or save money to start business. And I'm looking at it and going, I'm making $45,000 a year, $50,000 a year at the time, and I'm going, I just spent $382 this month on, you know, Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's and whatever. Like, if I extrapolate that over a year, that's $4,500. What could I do with an additional $4,500? And you really start to. I always say your life will be your decisions, but how do you make good decisions if you don't have data, if you don't have information? And if you think just by your feel, you're completely wrong. Nobody does.
You can't. And so to end this, you start your business. Is there simple, without giving a diagram or sharing your screen, what's the most simple way someone could start tracking their costs and
First,
inventory and
yeah.
income?
first thing you have to do, the most important things you have to do is track your labor, your real labor costs, and you're going to get that from your weekly or biweekly payroll. Like, what is that number? And your cost of goods, whether it's food, whether it's beer, whether it's whatever you're selling, what widgets, whatever it is, a cost to build the product that you're selling or the service. So those are going to be those are going to be the biggest costs you have. You need to track those, and then you're building out other things, your monthly utilities and your taxes and all those kind, and get as detailed though as possible, because you'll get, you ever heard the term death by 1,000 cuts?
Yeah.
A lot of businesses are, are have the death by 1,000 cuts, and that'll get a lot. So get as detailed as possible. Don't scoff at anything. If you had to write a check or a credit card or cash for that payment, write it down, and you will be glad you did, because until you understand those costs, you are playing a dangerous game.
Yeah, I think, again, newbie, the biggest surprises, I think, to business owners are income tax, payroll tax, and sales tax. Those, you got to know what you're paying in those.
Sure. Yeah. Now your income tax is going to be influenced. You're going to have to, at the beginning, they're gonna estimate it, right? So now
Yeah.
you're dealing with an estimate, and
Well,
the
that's
government
what I
doesn't
mean.
care. The government doesn't care if their estimate was, gratuitously off. They want their money. So you've got to deal with that. Sales tax can be a percentage of your sales, so you're best off just separating that from your sales account, moving it over, and then eliminating that from as a revenue stream in your mind. Like that 8%, which in our area, that I don't count that in my numbers. I don't count it in any of mine. I all my things don't have sales tax in it, so that's removed. And then, because that'll skew your labor and your other costs percentage wise. If there's going to be an 8% revenue that you're going to have in there that is going to say, oh, I'm doing really good on my food costs or my labor costs. Well, no, you're not, because you're counting sales tax, an additional 8% of revenue against your other costs. So it's skewing your percentages greatly. So you want to remove that right from the get-go. So if you're doing 100 grand in revenue, you're really only doing 92, because that
Right.
eight's coming off. So
And smart people get busted on that.
smart people make mistakes on that stuff.
Yeah. Busted's not the word. You're right.
Yeah,
Mistakes.
they make mistakes on that stuff, and it's easy to do. It's very simple to do, but there's nobody's gonna hold your hand through that or care for you. It's like you're the one who's gonna have to pay, literally and figuratively, on that stuff. So, removing those things right from the get go, and then looking at the labor and the food in particular, because that's what's gonna eat you alive, and it's not gonna be the garbage or the internet or those kinds of things. Now, those things combined, Paul.
No, yeah.
Do you need the fastest speed? Do you need the fastest speed internet in there possible? The answer is I don't know. But if it's only $50 a month, it's not $50 a month. It's $600 a year. Multiply that by 5 other things, $3,000 a year. It's like $3,000 a year, man. $3,000 a year. That's a month rent or whatever. Like those are the things that I just chip away at. If I don't need the fastest internet, it's gone. I'll get knock one down. If I don't need 6 pickups a month for my garbage, I need 4. I'm doing 4. I'm maniacal about that kind of stuff.
Love talking to you about it, because I'm excited about that. But I think at the end of the day, my last bit of advice before we cut off is you have to take disciplined time every single day to look at your numbers. If you don't, nothing else matters.
You're absolutely right, and you'll learn more by doing that, and you'll make better decisions because of it than anything else you can do. Do not do it every quarter, every month, every week. Do it every single day.
Yeah. Amen. All right, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. See you.